Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Sonic X. Okay, so in this episode, things kind of hit the fan quite a bit, but yeah, the episode kind of opens up with Dark Oak appearing with an army of Metarex troopers, and he tells Sonic that, and Sonic kind of doubts if Dark Oak can defeat him, but Dark Oak says that he doesn't think he can defeat him and that he knows he will. And that's and then points out that he has a near infinite army of Metarex troopers at his disposal, and that for every one Sonic destroys, several hundred will take its place. And Sonic is and points out that Sonic is actually going to be fighting a losing battle. So at which point he then proceeds to summon. At which point he then proceeds to send several of his Metarex troopers, which all dogpile on Sonic. But Sonic pretty effortlessly destroys them, and asks Dark Oak if he wants to continue playing games. At which point he goes to attack Dark Oak, and it's revealed that Dark Oak is actually a hologram. So and of course it's revealed that the real Dark Oak was never really on the ship at all. So he was never on the Metarex base. He just summoned a bunch of Metarex troopers from using a hologram and then left. So yeah, unfortunately that rematch just wound up not really happening. But in any case, Cosmo quickly realizes that Sonic is very hopelessly outnumbered, and even pleading with the Metarex not to hurt Sonic, pointing out that they'll give him the Chaos Emeralds or do whatever he wants. But of course, by this point, there's not really much of a choice, in that they have no choice but to fight each other. But eventually, meanwhile, Knuckles has confronted Dr. Eggman on his little Eggmobile, and tells him that he ought to beat the filling out of him and knock his egghead off. But Dr. Eggman tells them that they shouldn't move and that they should be very careful, and that even the slightest tumble can jar them through. Jar them loose, and also proceeds to tell them that they need to they just need to kind of cooperate. But of course, in accordance with Dark Oak, it's at this point where a new Metarex commander shows up with an entire army of fleets that immediately surround the Metarex base, and of course, it's at this point where the new Metarex leader introduces himself. He introduces himself as Red Pine, and he tells them that he and his three commanders are under the employ of Dark Oak, and that's they serve complete fealty to him, and that's he and his commanders will openly destroy them all. And of course, everybody just kind of points out the fact that there's a lot of them, and they quickly realizing that there's way too many Metarex for them to fight. Dr. Eggman very quickly realizes that he needs to get his ass out of there, and immediately leaves on his Eggmobile. Although Knuckles isn't particularly happy with the fact that Dr. Eggman is leaving, and even calls him out for it, pointing out that he can't just leave, that he should just leave. But of course, Dr. Eggman immediately retreats to his ship, and Knuckles retreats back to the X Tornado. But he quickly points out he doesn't know how to fly it, so he's kind of stuck there for most of the episode. But in case, he then proceeds to call Shadow and tell him that he needs to get the hell out of there. And telling him and tells him that he's going to call off the whole clan bake that they've arranged. And of course, Shadow points out his confusion, pointing out that his job was to retrieve the Chaos Emeralds. But Dr. Eggman points out that he doesn't really give a crap about the Chaos Emeralds right now, pointing out that they have way too many Metarex on their tail, and they need to get the hell out of there. So yeah, with that, Dr. Eggman kind of retreats back to the Crimson Egg, while Shadow kind of leads the rest of the group away, and tells them that he's going to have to get them out of there as well. And of course, meanwhile, Sonic is currently still trying to fight with the Metarex, but it becomes apparent that he's outnumbered, and Amy actually retreats to her own ship to try and help him fight off Metarex, but that doesn't wind up working, and her ship winds up getting damaged in the process. And Cosmo, meanwhile, is just watching all this, and quickly realizes that they're fighting a losing battle, but then notices the two Chaos Emeralds in the containers that are currently hooked up to the Planet Egg, and she concludes that maybe she can release the Chaos Emeralds using the code she deciphered. And sure enough, she then proceeds to push several buttons on the control panel, which enables her to free the Chaos Emeralds, but also causes the Planet Egg to kind of get put into a pod and then get ejected down into the base. And we find out what the giant tunnel that was in the base was for. As it turns out, it's an eject line for the Planet Egg. And when Red Pine finds out that the Planet Egg has been ejected, he concludes that the base no longer has any purpose for them, and then orders his entire battalion to open fire, which they do, and start destroying the base with many Metarex in it. And of course, Cosmo winds up getting snatched up by one of the Metarex troopers, who snatches the Chaos Emeralds from her, and Sonic eventually winds up fighting off the Metarex troopers, but while Tails and Cream are forced to put up the shield surrounding the Blue Typhoon, they quickly point out that it'll hold off several of the lasers for now, but for the time being, they're kind of screwed and they need to get out of there, because obviously, if they don't get out of there soon, they quickly point out that they're not going to be able to survive a barrage of that attack that kind of attack for very long. Meanwhile, Shadow prepares to flee, pointing out that he has to get back to the Doctor and protect him. But of course, Chris points out the very obvious thing, and that's obviously he's trying to point out that Shadow is being manipulated by Dr. Eggman, and that should be obvious. Dr. Eggman is kind of lying about the fact that he's going to help Shadow restore his memories, although Shadow doesn't seem to care, pointing out that Shadow points out that obviously Dr. Eggman is going to honor his promise, and he thinks that Eggman is going to help him get his memories back in exchange for doing what he wants. And of course, Rouge also adds to what Chris said, pointing out that obviously Dr. Eggman isn't a very trustworthy source of information, and points out that obviously he's just telling him that to keep Shadow on a leash so that he can keep controlling him. And of course, at this point where Chris points out that obviously Shadow can believe what he wants, but at the end of the day, he knows that even if he doesn't remember, he has helped Chris before, and that he can do it again. And with that, obviously Shadow pleads that he will help them, but only this one time, and then uses Chaos Control with Chris just barely making it back to him and being able to escape with Chaos Control. Which winds up beaming him back onto the ship. And of course he winds up being beamed back onto the Crimson Egg. And Dr. Eggman is very visibly surprised to see Chris, but also points out that it seems that he hitched a ride and that Shadow happily helped him. And also proceeds to call him Kid several times, which increasingly annoys Chris. And And he points out that he might as well stay and enjoy the show, but of course Chris calls Dr. Eggman out on his cowardice, pointing out that obviously Dr. Eggman got himself out the first sign of trouble, and points out that they were on the same side, but clearly that was a lie. Dr. Eggman points out that obviously that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes, and points out that sometimes you need to be able to save your own ass rather than somebody else. Of course, eventually, Chris eventually gets fed up with calling him calling himself Kid, and tells Dr. Eggman that he's 18 years old. Not that you could tell. And of course, this causes Dr. Eggman to become a little confused, pointing out that obviously he still looks just as young as when they first met. Obviously Dr. Eggman is just visibly confused, because obviously Chris doesn't look as old as he actually is. We've established that. But Chris then points out that yes, that he is in fact 18, and that he's also grown up a lot since they last met, and now he's learned to actually find ways to actually help his friends and take matters into his own hands. And when Dr. Eggman kind of snidely remarks if that's correct, Chris then proceeds to respond that it is, then pulls out a flashbang and swipes Dr. Eggman's 2 Chaos Emeralds while he's blinded, and then proceeds to steal a ship from Dr. Eggman and go back into the base to go find Sonic and bring him the Chaos Emeralds so that he can actually stand a fighting chance against the Metarex. Since obviously he got a call, he does also get a call from Tails at one point. I didn't mention that, but he gets a call from Tails telling him that from Amy specifically that Sonic is in trouble. But Sonic is able to actually fight off several of the Metarex. But then Cosmo and Amy notice that the Metarex seem a little too keen to destroy their own base, and wonder why they would do that when there's still so many Metarex aboard, pointing out that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But then the Metarex trooper that swiped the Chaos Emeralds reveals that all will be sacrificed for the glory of their great mission, and proceeds to try and attack Sonic again, but Sonic just destroys him. But in case it's at this point where they quickly realize that they need to get the Chaos Emeralds back. Specifically, and with Bokun pointing out that without the Chaos Emeralds are kind of sunk, and Deku and Boko pointing out that they will never be able to escape or defend themselves. But it's at this point where Dr. Eggman actually kind of goes on a bit of a tangent, revealing that his instruments are actually picking up a large gravity source, and he's curious what that is. In case Chris then proceeds to escape back into the base, but Shadow quickly takes pursuit after him and destroying the ship and Rouge eventually grabs Chris and tries to rescue him, and with Tails pointing out that Shadow's trying to destroy him, but Rouge offers to get him out of there in exchange for the Chaos Emeralds, which obviously Chris refuses, so she drops him, and he winds up being caught by Knuckles, who again is still on the X-Tornado. And since Chris knows how to pilot the X-Tornado, he's easily able to get Knuckles out of there as well. At which point they go back to the main chamber of the Metarex base, where at this point Shadow also proceeds to pursue the X-Tornado up into the main base. And it's at this point where the X-Tornado, because all 7 Chaos Emeralds have been brought together finally, this results in them all having a chain reaction, which causes Sonic to turn into Super Sonic and Shadow to turn into Super Shadow. And after effortlessly using the Super State to actually destroy all the Metarex, Sonic and Shadow then proceed to have a fight where Shadow is insistent that Sonic gives him the Chaos Emeralds, but Sonic points out that Shadow doesn't really have a plan for him, and he knows it, and then points out that Dr. Eggman really does have him fooled. At which point they then proceed to get into a large fight that starts destroying parts of the base. And of course, Cosmo, having never seen a Super State before, wonders what's going on and why they're glowing like that. But Chris merely responds, "It's chaos control." And it's at this point where they start destroying the base, and eventually they punch a large hole in it, which since we know from Dr. Eggman there was a large gravity anomaly, presumably caused by the planet egg, because we don't really get a clear explanation as to what's going on with that. I'm presuming it's a planet egg, unless I'm told otherwise. But this winds up causing a large gravity anomaly that starts pulling in everything around it, and so essentially they create a black hole. Essentially, is what happens during their fight. They punch such a big hole in the station that it winds up creating a massive black hole and starts pulling everything in around it. And eventually, Dr. Eggman's ship winds up getting pulled in, and without the Chaos Emeralds, he can't actually escape from the black hole, and despite his best efforts. And Shadow, quickly realizing that Dr. Eggman needs his help, immediately retreats quickly retreats back to the Crimson Egg, and uses Chaos Control to teleport the Crimson Egg out of there, with all of its crew on board. And with this the Chaos Emeralds wind up getting lost in the process. They wind up getting sucked into the black hole. We don't know what happens to them after this. Presumably they're fine because they're the Chaos Emeralds, but they're obviously a very important plot device for the anime, and the games as well. So we'll see how that goes. But meanwhile, because with the help of the X-Tornado, the rest of the crew that went out into the base winds up getting back to the blue Cyclone and Blue Typhoon, and with Knuckles praying to the Master Emerald to give it all its power so that they can escape. They manage to get the thrusters working at full power, and they're able to rescue Sonic, who winds up boarding the ship as well, and they wind up escaping. What we find out is that Red Pine and his fleet are not as lucky. They are unable to actually escape the pull of the gravity well that got created, and he's ultimately destroyed along with all of his crew. So unfortunately, he winds up getting sucked into the black hole and is destroyed. So yeah, despite being openly admitting that he is one of the more powerful antagonists in the series, being a Metarex commander, he unfortunately doesn't last past this episode. He's introduced in this episode and then immediately dies, which is unfortunate for him. But in case with that, the blue typhoon then proceeds to escape from the black hole gravity well. While Dark Oak watches from his own ship, which is out away from far enough away from the gravity well that's safe. And Dark Oak points out that he seems to have underestimated Sonic and his team, but does point out that this was merely a test, and that when the time comes, he will crush them and he will show them the true might of the Metarex. And declares that this is only the beginning. At which point the episode ends. But so yeah, this episode, as I said, shit hit the fan. Essentially, the 7 Chaos Emeralds were assembled, which enabled Sonic and Shadow to enter their super states, and then they immediately destroyed the Metarex base from the inside out and caused a massive black hole anomaly that sucked everything in except for our main characters. So yeah, that happened. That's just essentially what happened. They broke the Metarex base so severely, but this also seems to imply some more things, that they only specifically care about the planet eggs and not even themselves. Once the planet egg got lost, Red Pine immediately gave the order to open fire. So I'm interested to see what's going on with that. I'm interested to see whether exactly their end goal is, since obviously that one Metarex brought up that all will be sacrificed, that all sacrifices will be made for the sake of the great plan and the sake of their noble plan, which it is. And again, this isn't the first time that a Metarex has mentioned that they seem to have admirable goals. So again, we still don't know what the Metarex motivation is besides harvesting planet eggs and force feeding them chaos energy. We still don't know what they're doing with that. Obviously, they're collecting the Chaos Emeralds. They've obviously made a whole bunch of fake Chaos Emeralds. I'm still confused as to what's going on with that. So I'm sure that'll be addressed eventually. I don't know what it is, but currently the Chaos Emeralds are lost. We don't know what happened to them. But yeah, I'm unsure. Well, we do know what happened to them, but I'm not sure if they've survived being sucked into a black hole. I'm assuming so. But yeah, for the time being, I think I am going to leave this review here. So yeah, I'm interested to see what the Metarex are actually going to do next. But in any case, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter if you want to keep up to date with what's going on with the channel. I do post over there. I post updates over there. Please go check those out. Also, be sure to go and check out my Twitch. I'm trying to stream and push for affiliate over there, so please go check that out. Again, just go follow me over there. Watch the streams. Those will be very helpful. I would very much appreciate it if you did that. Yeah, in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. And if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this video. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. And also, be sure to go and check out my if you want to check out more things. I've played a lot of Sonic on the channel so far. I'm going to be playing a lot more. I'm going to try and finish as many of the Sonic games as I can. I've been playing I played the Minecraft Sonic DLC for it. I played bits and pieces of Sonic Mania and Sonic Unleashed. I need to finish both of those. I'm currently in the process of working on Sonic Frontiers. I'm going to be finishing that eventually. And I've also played Sonic Forces. Some people don't like that game, but I enjoyed it when I played it. And even if it does have issues, I enjoyed it. So go check out my playthrough of it. I had a blast playing pretty much all of those. I need to finish some of them, but I am planning to finish all of them. So yeah, go check those out. And in any case, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.